So we'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. This is the regular meeting of Council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West, held in Council Chambers at 216 Main Street West, Swan, Manitoba, this 23rd day of July 2024 at 7 p.m. Present this evening, myself, Reeve, Gade, Councillors Burick, Kushniryk, Blosha, McGregor, Zbirun, and Neely. Our Assistant CAO, Kristi, Ronnquist is here, and our videographer, Jeremy Bergen, joins us. We also have one person joining us electronically in the gallery. We will head to number 2 on the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held this 23rd day of July 2024 shall be adopted as presented. Is there a mover? Councillor Neely, and I also see Councillor McGregor. Any additions or changes to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. To number 3 we go, the minutes. Be it resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held July 9th, 2024 shall be adopted as presented. Is there a mover? Councillor Kushniryk, and I also see Councillor Burick in the corner there. A copy of the minutes is attached to the meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Does anyone need more time? Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Tonight we have Mr. Cam Cook scheduled as a delegation. He booked last week to be here, but this week we heard he may not be able to attend. So we'll just leave him pending here for a bit. He did tell us what it was about, so we'll give discussion to it even if he doesn't make it in. But if he happens to show up here in a few minutes, we'll let him speak.
I went there for something else, and he happened to be there, and we got talking, and I said, well, the best thing for you to do is get on our agenda as a delegation and come in and explain what's going on. It's likely best you do that once a year, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Just so that we know.
And he had intended to be here, but then something came up with work.
Yeah.
A project they're working on. He didn't know if he'd make it in, but we left him there just in case he gets here. We'll head to 6.1, general business, tax sale options. We talked about this last time around, so we prepared a resolution now. Be it resolved that the Municipality of Swan Valley West set a reserve bid on each tax sale property in the amount of the tax arrears and costs. Be it further resolved that the Reeve and CAO be authorized as bidders on behalf of the municipality in the 2024 tax sale. Is there someone to move the resolution? Councillor Blosha, someone to second. Councillor Neely. Any discussion on this? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. 6.2, Riverside Cemetery has sent us a letter looking for their annual grant. Just council on a resolution, while it's in the budget, we can just pay it out if we're fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's leave that one. Let's go, 6.3 is here as general business. It's really a discussion item, but let's give it some talk now while everybody's in a good mood. So there's a parade coming. Now last year, you may recall, sitting around a table much like this one, when I said to you, who's going in the parade with me? And like the little red hen, all of you said, not I, not I, not I. And yet, when it came time to me running through the parade, trying to distribute candy to the poor children of the valley, and being filmed, and those films being posted on the internet with people laughing at me running to keep up, all of you said, ha ha. So the question again this year is, who's going in the parade with me? We've got lots of room for some of you to come with.
Nice, the little red hen.
We're all hens on this side. I wear feathers, won't bother me.
I can't make it.
Yeah. You at least have an excuse. He has an excuse.
Are you on a music wagon or what?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, you can back.
Oh boy. You know what? Maybe we can do a gallop when he starts running this time.
Last chance for anyone that wishes to be on the parade with me. Going once, going twice. Seriously, at least wave when I go by this time.
We always do.
We do not have a grader this year. Staff is unwilling to operate a grader in the parade. We can discuss that further in camera if you like. But it looks like it will be just the vehicle being entered in the parade. I'll see if I can conscript a couple children to go with me to do some candy throwing. We do have candy. I was going to bring it tonight so you could sample it, but unfortunately I wasn't able to lift the box given my current condition. But it's yummy. I tried a little bit of it for you. And as I recall, when you don't sow the wheat, and you don't harvest the wheat, you don't eat the bread either.
Oh, well, we got some. Yeah, we're good.
Anything else in the parade that you care? We spent, I think, about $580 of candy this year, which is down from last year. Last year we were a little higher, so. But it should be enough candy to keep us going through the parade. And it's mostly good stuff.
Wear your straw hat, I think it might be a little warm.
Could be
Yeah.
warm. Hey, anything else on that? Not, we'll go to 7.1, general checks. Be it resolved that the council of the Municipality of Swan Valley West hereby approves the following payments. General checks number 19855 to 19858 in the amount of $30,358.96, and checks number 19859 to 19897 in the amount of $258,400.68, but excluding check 19875 in the amount of $704.56, and pre-authorized debit number 2024-009 in the amount of $889.37, and pre-authorized debits 2024-010 to 2024-0112, 012, I should say, in the amount of $351.53. Does anyone want that read again? Who would like to move the resolution? Councillor Burick. Seconded by Councillor Neely. The check that's being accepted there is a check in my name, so I just pulled it out tonight. We'll just bring it back a different night and put it on the agenda separate. Questions about the rest of the checks? Councillor Blosha.
Didn't even have your hand up yet.
I didn't have one yet. I actually looked at it twice and I couldn't find one.
Well, that's kind of disappointing.
I know.
There was a couple things I picked out in here. Mine were nitpicky things about the accounts that were assigned. The Barkman invoice was assigned to gravel supply instead of gravel transport, so I asked that to be changed. But the rest of it was pretty straightforward. I do note that that invoice from Mr. Barkman is the final invoice for the main gravel haul for Area 1 of the contract this year. It was completed a couple weeks back, 3 weeks back now, I guess. He has been doing some additional work for us. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Budget-wise, how did it come in?
Give me 1 minute, we'll get there.
Oh, okay.
It's next on the list. Anything for questions for checks? Hearing nothing, we'll call the question on the resolution. Those in favor? That is carried. To the budget we go. So the financial report's attached. Our Chief Financial Officer says this is not a financial report. This is a statement, but we're still calling it a financial report because it kind of bugs her. So budget numbers for gravel, I split them out separate here on my little piece of paper. So this year we budgeted $825,000 for haul, crush and supply, plus $50,000 of capital for 216 and that little piece by the airport. So a total of $875. To date, we have spent $410,033.06. So that's the numbers indicated plus the 102 that's written in. Those are invoices that are being held for payment yet because the invoices are not yet correct.
5 something.
So it's 410. We still have been hauling. Cooks has not done Area 2, and we've had Barkman doing some work in Area 2 as well to get it caught up. So I roughly said $100,000 what's currently planned and being done right now. That's probably a touch high. That would take us to 510, which leaves us 364 in the budget. If we crush 40,000 yards this year, which is hopeful, that'd be $300,000 of crushing. So we're about $65,000 right now unassigned. So we're not in bad shape yet.
That's for roads.
Is that all the bills are in now that the gravel? Because last meeting I had, I think 5 extra miles, and I think a few other people had a few extra miles. That's all in?
No.
No.
No, okay.
So what's the numbers you see in the, like the toner, the actual printed page?
Okay.
There's 232, 262, 74, 912,
Yeah.
and $105.
Yeah.
Those are all checks that we've written. That pen written on there, the 102,753, those are invoices from Cook Brothers that are here that have not been approved for payment because there's issues with them.
Okay.
So those are still pending getting fixed. So all of that together totals that we've spent 410.33 already.
Okay.
And then we still have, like, they were on the roads today and those invoices aren't in. So we haven't seen invoices for the last week and a half or so of hauling. That's where I said $100,000 for this plus finishing Area 2 to get us done to the end of that. We should be at 510 spent, and then we're going to be, assuming we crush 40,000 yards. I don't know if we will. I would like to have 40,000 yards crushed this year, so we have it sitting for next year because we're essentially out of gravel today. We're using what's left in Birch River Pit on 216 today. We have 5 trucks working. We've got some left in Benito. There's some there. They left us spare. And Cooks has disappeared. They've gone off to a different project. They don't appear to be crushing anything more in Birch River, even though it was promised for February, but it's not done yet. And we don't know when they will return to Benito to crush additional there. We had spoke here previously about having a different contractor do 10,000 yards in Birch River, and they refused to do it because of the overburden. But Chad's been checking out a couple other pits they have access to. I told Chad we approved 10,000 yards. If they want to crush 10 someplace. Get some gravel on the ground. Because we're quickly running out of gravel to even finish off these capital projects.
That's good gravel. The Birch River gravel is excellent gravel.
Well, Cam has some things to say about that too, and about, that's what I said, you best come and talk to council about all this stuff, you know, so everybody can hear.
Blair's called me 3 or 4 times about their home pit. And from what Cam was telling Kristi,
Yeah.
that's what he wanted to talk about. And so what Blair has asked several times is that I approve them crushing in their home pit to make gravel for 216. And typically that's pretty sandy there, and not particularly great.
Yeah.
But they say they have access to clay they could add to it. So I said to Blair a couple times, well, are you going to that pit anyway? Well, yeah. Well, then make some.
Doesn't seem the same though,
Show
when they add
us.
the clay to
Even
the
just put
sand.
100 yards of it on the ground. If you can add this clay to it, if you can do that, make some, put a pile there, a little pile, we'll come get some and see if we like it. But I don't want to commit to doing 10,000 yards of gravel there in an area we know is sandy.
Yeah.
That seems kind of...
Too much clay is not that good either.
I know, but
It's not
sand-
like- See
sand
what
that
happens
we-
up in Alpine, right? I mean, too much clay is not.
We did that previous years, Terry, we mixed clay with sand, not sand, but clay with gravel at Graham's. And it doesn't seem to be, the binding doesn't seem to be there, just,
Like the stuff we're hauling in, and we're hauling an awful long way. We're spending a bundle on hauling gravel, but we've been hauling into those north areas that have had that sand for years, actual real gravel.
yeah.
When you put that stuff on the road, we did some here just south of Swan by the landfill. When you went out there and looked at it, the middle, where we went down it with a strip of gravel, it looked like a road like you'd see in Alpine.
Yeah.
And the outsides of it just looked like this sandy black mush. It's so much better gravel that we're hauling in. But I said, like, we're not opposed to that home pit, but we want to see the product first. We're not going to order
But I
10,000
guess
yards.
what is the right mix, you know, like,
I know.
I'm not a gravel professional. I don't know if anybody in this room is. Like, what is the proper mix, you know, for our type of roads?
Yeah.
Those are things I said to Cam, you can come in and explain some of that stuff, because you've been doing this all your life since you were a little kid, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Isn't that why we're supposed to take it and get it tested?
well, we used to take it to highways or somewhere and they would test it or whatever, but for clay content and blah, 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 you know, fines or whatever you call it. But, I don't know, like, that home pit is right in the heart of the north area here. It's just north of 216 and 163 there, it's right.
I know, but if it's no good, it's no
No,
good.
no, I know, Brian, but,
And from what I understand, they're going there anyway next. And I said, if you're going there anyway, you know, if you're not going there if we don't order gravel, that's different. But if you're going there to crush anyway, show us. Make
Yeah.
a little bit of it the way you're proposing to make it. We'll go get a couple 5-gallon pails of it and play with it and see if we like it or not. We can put it on the road and stomp it in and see what it looks like. You know, if you're there anyway, make some. Show us what you can make.
yeah.
And then
There'll
if
be
it's good,
somebody
we'll use
around,
it.
whether it be maybe Barry Campbell or somebody there, well, it's gotta be, you gotta be able to test it somewhere, you know.
I kind of think maybe Cement Works can.
Maybe,
I think they might have the stuff
maybe
to test
Cal
it.
might have something, because he's got a pit two ways.
Yeah. But yeah, it would be, I didn't want to say yes to it. I said, I'm not saying yes to a whole pile of gravel until we make sure it's good first. Because the last thing we want is a pile there and we say, well, we're not paying for it, and they're mad.
Yeah, well, you don't want that, if you commit, you gotta pretty well eat it. So, yeah, let's see what it looks like first.
Yeah, we're gonna use up we have about 2,000 yards left in Birch. I don't know how much, they probably got through 1,000 yards today, because I had 5 trucks going, so they'll probably be done tomorrow or the next day. We'll have all of that on 216. And then we're putting 2 strips of it Now we're going to Benito and putting a strip down the middle of Benito gravel on top of it. So they're up there, from what I understand, packing and making it quite nice to see what happens
Gotta
with
get
it.
his water tank
He did.
all set up, yeah, when I talked to him. He was gonna look after Gordy and Port Bowles' place there too.
Yeah, he was there, and I asked him, he had some leftover, so I asked him just pick a place that's never had calcium before and do a little piece of road somewhere, so we can see what it looks like from scratch when we do it. How good is it? Because, you know, if we missed a spot or something, can we just go and do it with that and it's gonna work, or is it not as good?
Oh, you know the story on that one, the grader went through
Yeah.
by mistake. After the calcium went on before.
Councillor Blosha.
I just have a question, and I wasn't here last meeting, so I probably could have got it answered by our financial. Why do we put $1 in the columns?
So the reason the dollar got in was when we were doing budgeting. If we put a 0 in, it assumed the previous number as unchanged. So we put 1s in to force it to see it as different. And we probably could have gone back.
No,
and
I just
removed them,
wondered
but that's why
what,
they're-
like
yeah.
everywhere there's
Anytime, when we're doing budgeting, anytime we just put a 0, it says same as last year. So by
Okay.
putting the 1, we forced it to essentially go to 0.
That's good, I just wondered.
So we got roughly $65,000-$70,000 left for stuff that may have got forgotten, or like you were saying, that 5 miles or whatever.
And what we've spent so far, like a lot of this, we took off a crusher in Benito. So there's a lot of this is this year's gravel already.
Yeah.
It's not just hauling costs in here. A bunch of that is actual gravel too that we bought all at the same time.
I can't see us getting 40,000 yards crushed between now and the end of the year. If we can't get 10 done, I mean,
Well,
Did, I don't even know if this is the right place, but did anyone go to my Road 173 yet?
and, I'm thinking the one that needs to be built,
Well, not even built, filled in and graded.
something, yeah, I don't think they have.
Okay,
I'll have to chat with them though.
okay.
Any other discussion on this list of checks here? I noticed this was printed yesterday at 4:21, and I saw the airport commission did not get in this, so there might be 1 or 2 things that are slightly out of date here. I think most of the, everything was in already at that point, but airport commission must have been one of the last things to go through. But it's in the pile tonight to be paid, even though in here it's showing it's not yet. While we're here, I can report that tax bills came. They were folded, they've been mailed. For some members of council, you'll find your tax bill in your little folder there, if you have one. If you're like Councillor Kushniryk and live free and clear with no taxes whatsoever, he doesn't have one. It went fairly well this year. They were in alphabetical order when they came, so we did very little sorting. Almost everybody got the tax bills without getting extra envelopes unless required. So that was good. We cut down postage a little bit. We sent out the little folder thing with it with all the other details. So that's all in people's hands now. The final ones were mailed yesterday, I believe. So most were gone already, but ones that had some address corrections or any little weirdness to them got to the post office yesterday. Again this year we purchased the postage for them in Benito because the post office there was hoping to see its numbers a little higher to make sure we maintain the service there. And as a trade they gave us a little bit of labor to help with the stamps on.
all putting the stamps on.
Yeah. So, a good deal overall, because they get what they need and we get some help and life is quite nice. Our tax bills were out 1 month earlier this year. Staff have been tightening things up and making it work better, so
People can be sad for 1 month longer.
they can. Some of the new staff were saying, oh, well, it doesn't, you know, because we just cannot get mailed until the computer's ready. Oh, well, no one would come in the very next day, and I said, you'd be surprised.
To pay their taxes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Just
people
in
show
case
up
they
the very
forget.
next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, to pay the taxes. I wish I did life like that, but I don't. Okay, last chance. Anything else on the budget numbers tonight? Hearing nothing, we'll go to discussion. Sarah Lake Road. Do you have that piece of paper? We had a gentleman in to discuss Sarah Lake Road with us, and we promised we would give it some discussion as a council. So their concerns. I guess there was a bit of an incident between staff and residents. I did receive a phone call from a resident indicating that they'd had a bit of a row with some of our staff about that particular road, which at some point some of our staff may have suggested we're going to ban heavy trucks from that road entirely, which probably isn't true. Although it's tempting, we probably won't do it. But they had some concerns expressed to the office about discussion of banning trucks on that road. Also, the concerns were expressed that we're wasting money on the road. I think that related to the idea that the road should be built straight ahead to the highway instead of going around the extra mile. There were some concerns expressed about hole in the road, 4 feet in the middle of the road. And they wanted to point out that Sarah Lake Road should be a haul road. And surprisingly enough, on the map, portion of the road is not indicated as a road, it's indicated as a dirt trail. I don't know if that's a mapping error or what the idea was there, but they were concerned about ditching they felt should be done. That the grader is only grading to the bottom of the hill and turning around, it's not going all the way up through the business that's located up there. Concerned that they were grading the road themselves and graveling the road themselves. They say there's a culvert to be put in that needs to be done. Quite concerned about the project up there on the hill and the amount of money spent on that. Some discussions about if the road is safe, that there's been water running on the road, and some blaming of other businesses for using the road for the current state that it's in. So I could advise that after the big blow up between staff and the resident, several of our staff did attend to do some additional work on the road. So we've gone up there with the little backhoe, the little wheeled one, whatever we call it, and we dug out the center of the road where it was so bad. We've put pit run in there, we've put a little bit of geotech in there, we put some gravel back on there, and are sort of waiting for it to pack now. So I was the other day up there a couple times with my van, poor little van, and I didn't bottom out anywhere. I could drive all the way to the end of the road, turn around and come back down at almost full speed. So I did that before they did the repairs, and it was a little rough in that one section. After the repairs, I got through fine. So at this particular moment, passenger vehicles can travel the entire road. I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect if it gets really wet again, but right now the road is to a point where an ambulance or a van or a car could travel the entire length of Sarah Lake Road.
School bus.
Absolutely. So it's good enough for that right now. By no means is it the best road. It's rough. There's some places you want to be a little careful. Some places you should probably slow down. But it's much, much better than it was a few weeks ago.
The culvert that was mentioned is the original one that was supposed to be replaced.
That's correct. Yeah. So that's still on the doing list. I don't think it was done when they were up there the other day. They spent a couple days there, they were digging out bad spots. And those bad spots were right at the hill. And mostly, I think what's happened there is the riprap was built up so high that the water couldn't get down into the ditch. And so they filled in along the riprap to bring the road up, so the water will now shed off the road. But when the water was sitting on the road, obviously it got softer, and then the middle popped up, and the typical stuff that happened. So, if you get a chance, I would recommend going to see it. You know, if you're out that way for anything, see the road, see what's happening with it. And we can talk some more yet about if we want to go dig out some more soft spots or not. That could be an option when we're done at 216. We'll have some time on our hands.
173.
Yeah.
Well, they could, a certain resident could maybe mark them spots that he's talking about, unless they're really obvious. I mean, sometimes, you know, somebody knows, but it doesn't pop out and slap you in the face when you drive through.
Yeah.
because it's dry that day or whatever, when it rains, all that turns to mush or whatever.
Well, I can see that when it rains again, there's probably gonna be some spots come back.
The whole valley will be like that. I mean, this is a weird year this year, for some reason, I don't know.
Now, I did speak to Spruce Products about this road. They indicated they were willing to do some cost sharing. So if it pleases council, I think we'll give direction to staff to send a letter to Spruce Products taking them up on the offer.
Yeah,
That's fine by everybody here.
no, that's pretty generous of them, you know, like, I mean,
Yes.
when they use it lots, but I mean, still, Spruce Products and LP are actually very good that way. You know.
So we'll get to discuss what needs to be in there, but we'll see what they're willing to contribute. I think the answer is gonna be a few $1,000s. It won't be huge money, but every bit helps, right? And we can spend a little more on it yet. Anybody else want to discuss anything further with this? We can take that blow up in camera if you want details on exactly. how
Just the
that
ditches, I
happens.
don't know, they just need to be cleaned out, or what the heck with the
I'm not
ditches?
entirely sure myself. I kind of hung back. I was in the office when this was going on, but I kind of hung back because they were wanting to have a time of complaining about the Reeve. And so I let them do that for a while to try and get it out of their system.
He continued.
But Kristi got to spend some time there and made all the notes, but hey, we'll leave it there, but if you're in the area, please take a look at it. Or you're out that way, especially Byron, if you get a chance, just go see it so you get your mind around what it looks like now, and then when it gets rainy and horrible, we can see what it looks like then and
Okay.
do some work on what we want to do.
I'll be up there in
next.
about a month, I'll check it out.
Has Chad been up there to look at it? Like,
Chad was up there doing the work, so he's.
So our idea is to find a soft spot, take them out and,
We did the worst of them, like right where the work was done on the hill there was maybe 100 feet that was really bad now and just wasn't drying. So that's what we dug out. We dug out 3 or 4 tandem loads of stuff from the middle of the road and then filled it back in with pit and then put some geotech. We didn't geotech all the way across. We didn't do it properly. We did the worst parts of it to see what will happen next. If we'd done it properly, we would have closed the road for a few days and I don't think anyone's quite in the mood for that right now.
Yeah.
Not go over too good.
No, but we took the bad spots out so you can drive down the middle of the road, you can use it.
do we have a contract with him to run his grader up and down that road?
We do not. A week from now, we have a group of people coming in to see us that have purchased their own grader and wish to run it on the road. We just sideways a little bit, but we may as well discuss it because we need to tonight. So they're coming in to see us to talk about if we're going to allow their grader on the road. And we discussed previously at council, we'd speak to our insurance agents and we'd also speak to other interested parties. It was brought to my attention that they intend to also grade provincial highways with that grader. So I did speak to some of the folks in Thompson that run the highways department here about their thoughts on a private grader grading PR roads. They are less than enthused on that. They're probably not interested unless it's done on a contract basis, and they're probably looking for core certification before that grader could run. They gave quite a lot of advice to us, basically saying that at our peril would we let someone just grade a road without some sort of agreement with them. If there's to be private road grading, we had better have it in a contractual way to indicate what should be done and what shouldn't be done and who's responsible. Their concern is that if we just set people loose on the roads and say, grade what you feel like, ultimately we've given them permission, but with no rules for what they have to follow, and then it's all our fault. So Highways was strongly suggesting they would prefer that if we're going to entertain a private grader maintaining roads, we contract with that grader. That, of course, flies in the face of our union agreement that says we won't contract out the grading. From the insurance side, our insurer is looking for a minimum of $5 million of proof of liability with some sort of endorsement indicating that the insurer is clear on what is being proposed. So this is a private grader grading a road it does not own.
The only thing is, Phil is this guy with the letter has been grading that road for many years. We almost set precedent that away we go.
we need to make a rule that applies to everybody.
Yeah.
Because we can't have one-offs. Either we're going to allow private grading and we're going to have some rules for how you do that, and as long as you follow these rules, it's okay. Or we're going to say no private grading, and then we're gonna have to explain why we allowed it all these years and changed our mind.
Exactly.
It's not going to be an easy conversation or an easy decision, because we have to somehow try and balance the interests of everybody. If we have some people willing to do good quality work for us for free, how do we say to our taxpayers, well, we turned down free stuff so we could pay for it someplace else? But we have to balance that with, the work has to be good work. You know, if we let someone go make a big hole in a road, that wasn't smart. So we have to figure out, if we're gonna allow it, how do we do that in a way that makes sure that it's as good as we would have done it ourselves, and doesn't open us up to being sued because somebody fell off the road because there was a hole in it. I'm of two minds, you know, if we had never allowed it ever, I'd probably be of the sales pitch of we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, yeah.
But we've
exactly.
allowed it.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
done it for years, we've let
Yeah.
someone do
Since
something.
mostly, before most of you were born, it's been done.
Isn't there some loggers like that log, like on a haul road? Not a designated haul road, but on a haul road, they maintain the road themselves?
There have been times.
Mhm.
By
Yeah.
no means is this the first time someone's,
Yeah.
maybe this is the first time to this level of organization and this many people, and not in a case where it's because they're running a log truck and wrecking something, they're going to fix it. But we need to come up with some guardrails of when is it okay and what's not, because we don't want everybody with a blade going out and grading a road and making it a whole lot worse. But at the same time, we shouldn't be unreasonably restrictive. If we can find a way to make it work, it would be nice to make it work. But we can't have the union grieve it and cost us that money with the union either. We somehow have to find a way to make this fit.
You gotta be a happy medium somewhere, as long as, like you say, they got the liability insurance and
Yes.
they can do the quality grading. And who decides that, I guess, would be my question.
Well,
Who's
I meant-
gonna say they're not doing a good job? or-
But
I don't think,
Everybody has a different idea of what a good job of grading is.
I don't think that they'll be going out with a grader to make a worse job.
It shouldn't be.
No, they'll
There
be
was
making,
a-
So they wanna do it better,
Better, yeah,
that's why they
that's what I'm
got the
saying.
grader.
yeah, so I mean, they'll be,
Well, there's already been an incident where someone went and pulled a bunch of dirt onto the road. They pulled up shoulders and pulled a bunch of dirt and left it in the middle of the road. And we got left to deal with that. So in that particular case, the intention was great. They thought they were fixing a road. They weren't. They put a bunch of black dirt on the road. So, you know, those are the types of things. We were graveling in the area, so then we graveled over top of that to try and make the road good again. But if it had just been left black dirt on the road the next time it rained, then what would we do?
But our guys sometimes scratch it right down to the dirt too on the
They sure
hills.
did, yeah.
You know, there's not a handful of gravel in 40 yards, it's just black dirt.
So,
Maybe they got nothing to work with there, I guess that's what they're gonna
that's what I
tell
always
us.
say. Yeah. But we need to come up with something, because we need a policy that says this is how it works. And if you do these things, then this is what you can do. And if you don't do those things, you can't do it. But we have to make that fit.
A lot of it is, I think, snow-based, it's like snow plowing.
Well, and specifically for them, they cannot obtain insurance for snow plowing.
Who can?
The people that bought that grader say they can't get insurance to plow snow.
Oh,
So that may be out to begin with, because if they can't get any liability insurance for plowing snow, they can't plow snow.
that's dangerous too, plowing snow.
They
Like
can
you
only
get
get
the wind, you
liability
get the
for
snow
grading
that,
in the summer.
you get the snow
But
flying.
you know what? I drove school bus many years up and down that hill, and many times in the winter time I met somebody plowing snow, and I'm trying to get around them with the bus and whatnot. So I mean, this has been happening for
you got,
20 years.
you got a radio in the school, well, when you didn't back then, maybe.
no. I mean,
Now they have radios in the school.
yeah,
buses.
and at the end of my driving, they put a radio in that I could actually
Yeah,
contact the truck driver.
VHF,
Yeah.
yeah.
But there's lots of times where you're bouncing off the snowbank, going around the semi coming down the hill because they're coming loaded.
But you wouldn't even get up there if they didn't plow the road,
Well,
right?
you wouldn't, but
Yeah,
still,
I spoke to highways about snow plowing. I said, so many times the farmer goes and plows a mile because there's so much snow they can't get out. And they view that as emergency plowing. and they're fine with emergency plowing. If there's snowbanks you can't get out, you go make a path through them, they don't care. But they're not fine with regular maintenance plowing without some sort of agreement. And I asked them, like, what do you guys do? Because ultimately this impacts both of us. If there's gonna be a grader going and doing PR roads and our roads, we better at least be somewhat together on how this is gonna work.
So the farmer with a 16-foot blade on front of his huge tractor can go down the road and clean the snow off, but a grader can't go on.
The farmer, in theory, from the insurance side of it, is running under his farm insurance while he's out there. And if he does something that costs a lot of money, his farm insurance has to pay it, because he was plowing to get his farm access to a road. But if he goes and does a bunch of other people's roads that he wouldn't normally drive on, and he does something silly, he'll find out he has no insurance.
These guys want this to plow so they can get their super bees in and do it all the time with grain, right? I mean, that's the main purpose, I think.
As long as their insurance company is willing to cover off on the insurance, that's not a concern to us. But they specifically said they've tried to get insurance for snow and the insurance company won't give them money.
Interesting.
Yeah. The other thing they wanted is for us to not stop doing the road maintenance on the same roads. That's how would that work? Because we go with a grader, say, on Tuesday, but how do we know if you were there on Monday or not? So we're gonna grade the road twice in 2 days? That doesn't make sense. That's why they're coming in, to have a very long conversation with us about what could be done, how we could make it work, or if we can't make it work. But they're booked for next Tuesday, so 1 week from tonight, to be here at 7, with all of us to have that conversation. And basically all sit around here, 5 of them are coming, 7 of us plus Kristi. We're gonna sort through, what does this look like? How can we make this work? Can we make this work? It'll be an interesting night.
Well, hopefully we can make it work, so.
I don't ever want us to say no for no's sake. If we have to say no, there better be a really good reason why we're saying no. If we can make something work for somebody, we should always be as permissive as we can, but within the confines of not doing something silly.
As far as the union part goes, it's not like we're gonna be laying anybody off or anything.
Well, the union part, we could, if we hired them at union rate, level 1, trainee rate, and paid the hourly wages to whoever was running that grader, that could happen. But then it would be all on us, because they'd be our employer. We'd have to be providing supervision and such, which they probably don't want. And we
One
may
of
not
them,
want
one of
to.
them's gonna jump on the grader, which one that
Yeah,
day,
because
who
it would have to
knows,
be-
it's not gonna be a regular operator.
I don't know, it would have to be vetted for who it was. It would be a hornet's nest here of trying to keep track of that. But it is one option to do that, but it would be difficult. We could contract them for $1 a year to go grade our road. As long as we weren't costing any union members jobs, we'd probably not hear much from the union about it. But we should, if we're gonna do it, we should have some sort of agreement that guards how it happens. So we don't find them 20 miles away on a road we didn't expect doing something we don't think they should.
They'll give us a list of the roads. that
We
they
would have to
wanna
say
do.
these roads, there's times, there would have to be some sort of agreement come up with. So we all know what's happening. And then the same thing is gonna have to apply to that other grader. An agreement's gonna have to be struck there. If you're gonna do this, this is where you're gonna do it. This
Well,
is,
snow plowing there might not go over too good,
maybe his insurance covers it.
maybe.
If it does, great. If it doesn't, he should probably get some insurance, because if he clips that school bus on his way down,
Well, people drive up the government, the Bush Road, people are driving on there, if something happened, he must have some
it's
kind
gotta be.
of.
If there isn't, it's very silly,
Because it's not a private road per se, it's a,
right?
yes, it's not a RM or a provincial road, but it is a road where people travel, so.
So, think about it lots between now and then, 'cause we've got a week to, but we'll talk. I think we're gonna have a very open conversation with them about where are they coming from, where are we coming from, how can we make it work?
How
Councillor
many,
Burick.
how many machines of ours are running right now?
My guess is 5. Don't quote me on that, I didn't ask Public Works today.
We got that many operators.
We have that many operators, and they were working on 216 today, so I know they're up there with trucks and stuff, so there's a good chance today all the machines weren't running because they're probably up there hauling and doing and working
They
away
need
at it.
to stick their blade out into the shoulder a little bit more as they're going. You can really see like they cut grass down Road 200 and whatnot, and you can really see that there's gravel and then like grass on flat, about a foot and a half, and then you can see the ditch go down.
Yeah,
They need to be sticking.
that's called a secondary ditch, Byron.
Oh.
Yeah,
After a while, it gets to look like this.
you gotta burn this high, and
Well, I told
you gotta run that high to get off the roof.
I told them, I says, when you go on one pass, stick it 6 inches into the grass.
Yep.
There's a little bit of grass in the middle of the road. I said, that's fine.
That used to be how it always was.
Yeah. And I said, next time you go down, stick another 6 inches in.
Yeah.
I said, pretty soon you'll be
2
where you're
feet.
supposed to be. Yeah.
The road will be wider.
Not happening.
The
Yeah.
road will be way wider.
No
than-
kidding.
Well, they should be doing that in the spring, like doing
They
it
should
in
be
the
doing it all
fall.
the
In the
time.
fall, it's kinda late already, cause you'll get that grass.
Well, you can't leave that berm there, and
Yeah.
otherwise it all ends up in the ditch.
That's right.
When the one-way goes, it catches that and throws the road in it.
Anyways, okay.
They used to be like where they did roads, they always had grass in the pile
Yeah.
on one side, right? And it dried out and then it fluxes
Blows
away.
away.
Yeah, and then you do it again the other way,
Yeah.
and there's fresh grass, and you
Yeah.
know, come winter, before winter, you spread that out so you don't have a pile on either side, so you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Before winter, we should be doing what they call a 3-pass.
Mm-hmm.
Up, down, and up again.
Yeah.
Right down the middle with your blade, right in the middle of the road, tilt it a little, just drag it out so it's not such a crown like this. And
Yeah.
a lot of your gravel is in the middle of the road, not over there where it's gonna get blown in the ditch. But anyways,
Anything else on 8.1? We kind of went for a tour there at Public Works, but moving to 8.2, speed bylaw. You'll recall you all had some homework, except maybe Councillor Blosha was a little exempt from it because she wasn't here, but making a list of any places you wanted interesting things for speed limits or such, so we can get that in the bylaw. Not that I'm disappointed that you maybe didn't bring any, but you know, the time will come very soon that the bylaw will be ready for first reading.
and
So-
we're gonna specify certain spots on it then.
Certain spots, yeah.
Like your parking area,
Mhm.
like your parking that you spoke about.
That could go in
There
this
may be a
too.
sign for that parking issue.
Oh,
That could
So
go.
that would be on your list, and we'll see if we have any sort of sign that would suffice for there.
and 172 by the Woody River there. It's been suggested to me numerous times that that should be 70, not 90 there. Because you come up that hill and all of a sudden you're there and there could be a semi pulling out or something.
So if you could,
Cause I just tell Kristi that's fine.
anybody else
Yeah,
that has those
make
things, to Kristi, please. So we're gonna take a stab, but the office has a couple little projects on the go right now that are tying up some time, but then we're gonna take a stab at this bylaw and come back with a first reading with a list of the speed zones and get this done. 8.3, Benito storm and emergency preparations. Since we were all last here, we had some entertainment in Benito. So great storm. I don't know if you saw the pictures of the lightning. I had this great idea I was going to go outside and film that storm, and it seemed like a really good idea at first because it was really dark outside, so I couldn't see how big it was. And then when I realized how big it was really too late to get to the base with it. So I sat in the half ton, very nearly rolled the half ton. With the wind that came through, it was breaking off trees. But Benito was without power from midnight that night until, say, roughly 2:30, 3 o'clock the next afternoon, before the main lines came back up, and a lot longer for some people. Some people were a whole nother day before they got power back. You may recall, not that many weeks ago, we met with emergency measures, and one of the things we asked them was if they had like just a checklist of things we should think about. You know, in case an emergency ever came up. And they said, no, not really. But you know, you could have an exercise where you thought them through. Well, for Benito, we now have a very good list of things that don't work right when we have an emergency. So we had some water trouble out there. It was boil water order. So what we found is that we are woefully unprepared in the Benito area. Probably as unprepared in the Swan River area too. For any sort of emergency. And this is, what happened there, a storm of that magnitude is a pretty run-of-the-mill, every couple of year emergency we might have here. Things didn't go well. We had, the water plant went down, and I was up until about 2 o'clock that morning. But I didn't want to phone anybody in Benito at 2 a.m. to say, hey, do you have power? Because, wake somebody up. So I'm checking the hydro map, yeah, there's power, everything's good, there's no reported outages in Benito. And I went to bed. But the power had been off since midnight, it just hadn't got reported to hydro yet. So I thought we have power at all our plants, everything's good, and I went to bed not worrying about it and got up the next morning and didn't know we hadn't had power all night. Some staff knew there hadn't been power, so they went into the water plant and knew the plant had been off for half an hour, but maybe didn't report that to the emergency reporting line like they should have. But they had a good excuse. The phone didn't work, because in every facility we have cordless phones now. We don't have any wall phones. So even though we had working phone lines, we couldn't use any of them. So it was impossible to call between our own facilities when there was no power. We found out that we don't have radios for everybody. So even though we had vehicles, Public Works in Benito, we couldn't talk between everybody because the people that normally work in Benito didn't have a radio that could get on the same channel as the other ones. I was out there too, and I couldn't get on channel, so I was chasing down our vehicles to get a vehicle to stop so I could talk to other people because the cell service was so bad because there was no boosters working that we normally use out there. On the waterfront, we started the plant up, but nobody put any thought into the idea that if you're putting water into people's houses, where's it going to go after they use it? So there was no power to the lift station. So we ran many hours providing water to people without providing any sewage service to people. And we came within a few inches of flooding basements with raw sewage over that. Even into the next morning when, it was starting to become apparent we had a problem, we were starting to mobilize out there. At 7 a.m. when Public Works came to work, they didn't go to Benito. They went and got a mower going and started mowing grass because they had no idea they had that big of a problem out there because nobody had flagged it back to anybody else that were on emergency backup, were having these problems. All that information was compartmentalized in Benito and never shared. So it was probably 8 a.m. before that was really getting to be known in the organization. And then the next step was we did have a sewage truck there sucking out of the lift station, which is great, that's what we needed to do. But it was by accident. Nobody had actually called a sewage truck. We had a crew in town to clean the lift station that day. They had no idea there was no power either, so when they showed up to do their job, we paid them to come out, they couldn't do it because the lift station was full. So the truck was there, so they vacuumed a whole truckload out trying to help a little bit and then left. But that truck never came back because it wasn't us that had called it. And so it went to do other things for other places and wasn't available. So we ended up calling a truck out of Roblin as the next closest truck to come and get some more out to make sure the basements were safe. And that was a process. Even finding keys for the lift station to get into it, we were for the second time in a week pretty close to cutting locks off to get into things that we shouldn't have those problems. Like this, we learned a lot. Kristi has a list of things going on that just didn't go well. In the cleanup, we had some issues with, we have some pretty clear policy on how cleanup works, but nobody knew that or chose not to ask. So then a bunch of people in Benito were told that, yes, we'll come get all your trees from you. We typically don't come and get private trees, but they were promised to a bunch of people, so then they didn't take them away, so we ended up fulfilling our promise. But then we had ratepayers in other communities saying, well, Benito got it. Where are my trees going? So we ended up going to Durban and taking trees away places because they were upset that we did it for people in Benito. It was a mess, honestly, it was an absolute mess. We learned so incredibly much that day, and Kristi is fully committed to updating a bunch of stuff. She's been working on some of that. We're going to work through more of it. We're going to take some pretty critical look at what we do in these offices too. We've even had the conversations of, so if the power's out here, then what? If it's Swan River with no power, but Benito has, can we function as an organization that day? Are we even able to access our emergency plans that are kept here in a binder someplace? Because that morning in Benito, no one could access the emergency plans. No one pulled out the binder and said, I'm having an emergency, what do I do next? Because they didn't know where it was. And there wasn't a sheet in it for that. There was no sheet in there that said, if there's no power in Benito, worry about these things. It just doesn't exist yet. So we're starting to write those now and get them done. That took us into some of our computer systems, so we looked at the backup system and found out that we are doing an offsite backup here, 6 inches away from the main backup. So up until a few days ago, if the building had burned, that was just the end of us. We had no additional copy of any of our tax records or anything else anywhere but in one room in this building. So that's been rectified, but we'll probably have to do a little more to rectify that some more. But we're not in great shape for emergency preparedness yet. And that'll be a year project as we work through these things. And just, I did eventually find one real phone. I searched the Benito office for about 10 minutes and I found in a cupboard an actual phone I could plug into something. And they were so happy when I finally phoned in and said, I found a phone. We had staff going to people's houses to see if they had a real phone or not, to be able to call for problems. Like it was rough. So, got some work to do. Boil water order has ended. Testing was done correctly. It all passed, that's fine. Also, in the midst of that, we were working on draining the lagoon that day. So we delayed lagoon draining by a couple days, just so we weren't trying to do it in the middle of a power outage, but it has been drained and we're ready to refill, and that seems to be going fairly well too.
Power out of an Alpine too?
Not all of it, but some was. We found out the lift station was never built to take a generator. So we had people offering us generators, or farmers offering us generators.
Not wired for it.
Not wired for it. So we need to wire it for it. And that's gonna cost maybe $1,000. It's not much, but we gotta do it. So next time this happens, we plug a generator in and we carry on. Because there was no reason we shouldn't have been providing water to Benito. We had to turn the water off to keep from flooding basements. We had water, but we couldn't give it to anybody because then they'd flush.
Water was coming in and going out, it just didn't have anywhere to go. Except out a hole.
So, because we were off so long, we had to do line flushing and such, which wasn't fun, but we've done enough. We have to do a proper line flushing yet. But the good news is, I got to go and spend the whole evening learning how to flush lines in Benito. So next time we do that, I can go help flush lines. Good times. You'll be hearing, there'll be more stuff coming to meetings, and you'll hear recommendations from Kristi and I if we need to do this, because we have to be better prepared. So don't be surprised when more stuff comes and we're saying, hey, we should do this, we should change this, we should make this happen. Because we can't let it be that bad again. Because something will happen, whether it's a snowstorm or a rainstorm or a tornado, something will happen. And we've got to be in better shape than we were. Any questions, comments on any of that? 8-4 Benito Fire Hall, that one's really quick. The fire chief called me earlier today. He's worried that we're not progressing on plans for the fire hall. So I promised him we would get together, and I would imagine that'll be Councillor Zbirun and Councillor Kushniryk and I. Is there anybody else that desperately wants to be there? If not, we'll get fire committee together with the fire chief there and give some more look at the building and what we're gonna do, and try and get some formalized plans that we can bring back to council for everybody to talk about and see if this is what we want to, how we want it to look.
I might be able to touch a little bit, we got the location
The location
finalized there.
is finalized. We have, surveyors have been there to subdivide property. We have an agreement to purchase the property for the fire hall. It's on the highway location we looked at. I think you were here for when we had the 3 options.
Yeah.
So it's the
Is it
highway
right
option.
up against the highway there?
Right up against the highway. So, they're preparing the paperwork to subdivide. As soon as that's done, we can go to highways for permission for the access lane, which looks like it should be okay for a fire hall. So we'll have direct access to the highway.
It won't come right off the highway then.
That's our plan, is right off the
Oh,
highway.
an approach right off
Right off,
Highway
yeah.
83.
So we have full access to the highway as quick as we can. So, with the fire chief, they were still kicking tires at building size and such, so that's where we need to go back to with them, is firm that up some. What are we willing to build? How fancy are we willing to build? Not very is the answer. But, you know, some nice square thing with enough doors in it, and then start to get some ballpark quotes on what this is gonna be and see if we can afford what they're thinking, if we have to change that. I would hope, like right now it's canola in that location. But that's gonna be done in another month or two. You know, two at the most, month and a half probably it's off of there. And then at that point, you know, we can start doing some site prep already this fall. We've got some equipment, we could do some things if we needed to. And hopefully be ready to go in the spring to,
What's the soil like there? Is it very,
Sandy.
is it sandy?
and that'll be part of it. We'll have to have some engineering work done likely on what we're gonna do for foundation. Make sure we don't build something that doesn't last.
Well, at least it's by the highway, we don't have to worry about any kind of other properties and stuff there. Don't come out on the side road and,
And we have a plan for how to get the water to it, so I think that's all gonna work out fairly well. So, it should be good. But I'll be in touch with the other two gentlemen here. We'll pick a date with Jeff and maybe one or two of his guys, but I think we're gonna try and avoid the full department because it just gets to be
Too much.
too much. Yeah, we need to start focusing in on
chief
that a little more.
the chief and the deputy,
Mhm.
whoever.
Anything else on that? We'll move to 9.1. There's a letter here. I wrote to the Minister of Transportation, the Honorable Lisa Naylor, about Provincial Road 275. We've also had the AMM doing some lobbying for us. It came up during lobby days. They spoke about 275 on our behalf. So the question, of course, is what are we going to do about it? And by we mean them. So I repeated our request for it to be an RTAC road. You'll see in the letter they've denied that request. They feel they will not be upgrading 275 to RTAC standard. Our hope was they would do that because it would alleviate so much traffic off of our haul road. But if they don't RTAC it, that traffic's staying with us. They do, however, indicate that they have scheduled a surface reconstruction project for on 275 from PR 588 to PTH 10A. So that's the portion of the highway closest to Swan River. It's in their multi-year plan, so not this year, but it is scheduled.
Oh, it says considering,
Yes,
doesn't really say schedule.
it's in the plan, but the plan doesn't always, not everything in the plan gets done. Sometimes they keep bumping it down, but that's the best version of the news I can share is they're talking about doing something and they promise they will go fill some more potholes. I know they did just hire a new pothole filler, so they're being trained and hopefully some potholes will be tackled next week by the highways folks.
It's pretty bad though, like in the wintertime, some of the buses won't even travel, they'll take the back roads in the wintertime.
Yeah, it's so
It's
narrow
icy.
and rough.
Well, it's rough. Was there any discussion about the drainage?
There hasn't been in the last few weeks. That was originally the department's condition was the drainage had to be fixed before they do anything with the road.
Yeah.
But that was back when they were talking about widening the road. And if they're not
So they're not
attacking,
gonna,
they're not widening.
you don't think they'll widen it, because that big equipment, you get big equipment going on there, it takes a whole
They're
highway.
just gonna redo it.
They're still putting the pavement on.
Yeah. And it's pretty narrow pavement too as well.
Yeah. Be 70.
Because they took a reading on that road, I think years ago, and they said there's as much traffic coming in as that one, 83, is that right? Do you remember that,
I
or?
don't remember that.
That was years ago. Do you remember that, Terry?
I
They took
don't
a traffic
remember.
count, coming in from White Beach.
I would say it's, you know,
pretty busy.
I don't know if it's as busy, but it's not far from it if it isn't. Certain
But-
times of the day, boys, you just,
So it's on the agenda then? Or
It's on their
it's on their
multi-year plan.
long-term
Multi-year,
plan.
so when they say multi-year plan, is that what, 2, 3, 5-year plan? or-
Generally, it's a 5-year plan, but it's about as fluid as our 5-year plan.
It can change yearly.
Yes. I have yet to see Swan Valley West follow its 5-year plan. So I wouldn't suggest highways will either.
Do you think they need a reminder every year to look into the matter, or?
Certainly it'll keep coming up. It's on the AMM's list to lobby for, but
Because it's a very,
It's a dangerous road.
yes, it's dangerous. Like, I mean, there's, I don't know, is there a Facebook page or somebody's running a page on that road all the time complaining about the condition?
I don't know.
probably the best thing at this point is for individuals to be writing to the minister. You know,
Is
to be
what?
writing to the minister. You know, individuals that are concerned about it should be sending letters in. They should be detailing the stories about this is the accident I almost had. This is why I can't drive that road. This is why it's not safe. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, or in this case, the pavement. So the more noise there is going to government about it, we've made the noise we can. We can't write every week as a council, but certainly individuals can keep on pushing on it. And probably calling the minister's office is more effective than talking to the MLA. Because you kind of want the government here, not the opposition.
When Wob was here, we should have taken him for a tour down there.
At about 110 miles per hour.
110. Yeah.
Moving on to 9.2, there's a couple statements here that our MLA sent in. Neither of these issues are in the purview of council, so it's just presented for information tonight. There's nothing for us to do. 9.3, the Swan Valley Historical Museum has provided their financial statements. The copy is attached to the public agenda, so anyone can take a look that wants to see how they're doing. The answer isn't bad, but it's not great either. This year the museum had hired summer students for the Green Team program before they were told there was no funding for them. They were one of the organizations cut from funding, so they still have those students, which means this year they'll be facing a loss likely, because they don't have the money to offset the students. They do have some reserves and such. The museum president also visited with me for a bit and indicated that they're looking at a infrastructure project. They're having some issues with their sewer system. So there's possibly some spending going to be happening on that. They're asking what, if anything, council would do, and I said the only thing I could commit to was that if they had a specific capital project, they were welcome to tell us about it or make a request and we would consider it. But that we don't have any particular program to just write them a check for it other than what we give them each year. But
I see that, did Minnetonka's Bozeman not give them their grant last year? And what about this year? Did they pay last year's grant this year?
I can't speak for the council of Minnetonka's Bozeman.
Well, I'm
but,
just looking at the statement, and the statement says it's the number is there, but it's not paid.
I can say that Minnetonka's Bozeman has a particular outlook on paying for grants that is not always the same as our council.
Okay, that's all I need to hear.
And the president did also indicate that there were some write-downs in these statements for grants that had been expected from certain municipalities that were never received and had been sitting on the books for years waiting for the money to come. And so they declared those as a loss this year and moved on from it because they figured it was never going to come. Which probably further answers your question.
Yeah.
9.4, Swan Lake Watershed, financial statements attached from the watershed. If anyone cares to take a peek, they're in there. They're on the public agenda as well. If anyone wants to go see how the watershed is doing, they do quite nice work over there. And it's there. Any questions on either the museum or the watershed financials tonight? We'll move on to 9.5. The leachate pond for the Burrito landfill. You heard the last meeting that we were working with the forestry department on the trees. They've gotten back to us. In 2020, we paid for the value of all the timber on that property. So we can cut at will as long as we have a permit for operating equipment on Crown land. So we're working through details in Public Works of how we're going to get that done and who's going to cut exactly and make it happen. So we're progressing on that project. Is there anything else you want to add on it? No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. 9.6, a golf tournament. I would particularly like to see some of you golfing because I think it could be fun to watch Councillor Kushniryk try. The Gilbert Plains Municipality is inviting us to their annual golf tournament. 4-man best ball tournament. It's on the 31st of July. If you folks want to organize a team, let me know how it turns out. 9.7, the RCMP report. This is a lot of numbers. It's there for you if you want to take a peek at it. To see what the RCMP have been up to in our area. I was thinking perhaps we should invite Mr. Henson to attend and talk to us in some language other than just these numbers. Would that please the group?
Sure.
Could you see if Mr. Henson could drop by a meeting for us to have a conversation? I did have a conversation earlier this week with the Safer Communities folks, with one of their enforcement people, specifically to the drug house in Durban. And they know the house well. They were actually able to tell me, I told them the address, they're like, we don't think it's at that address. So we had a long talk because they thought it was a slightly different address. But they know the people well, and we certainly have been taking complaints at the office continually about that drug house. They indicated that they were well aware of it. But because the people own the property, they're somewhat limited in their enforcement, because part of their rules apply to landlords and rental properties, and they own it, so it's not quite the same rules. They indicated they had taken several attempts at getting Swan River RCMP to enforce drug rules at that house, and the detachment had not done so. They did assure me they would call Swan River RCMP again this week, and again request that the RCMP attend the house and conduct a drug raid of the house. But they didn't seem to be holding out a lot of hope on that, which is part of what we should discuss with Mr. Henson when he drops by. See why it is they're not going there.
On that note, how's the GIS program coming along?
I spoke to the mayor on it a few days ago. From what I understand, the paperwork is nearly done with the feds. They've made the request, they're getting the contract signed. There's no ETA yet for the beginning of the program, but the local police know it's coming. RCMP knows it's coming, so they should be lining up while we're waiting for the federal government to sign off. But there's no firm date yet. The mayor estimated any time between a month from now to the first of next year. But we're certainly hoping for sooner rather than later. On that front, I did speak to the mayor both yesterday and today about the concerns that were expressed in the community with the Rainbow Lodge. He is concerned. He's spoken to the Premier's office about it. He also indicated that the mayor of Thompson will be speaking with the minister responsible tomorrow. They're spending some time together, and the Thompson mayor agreed as a favor to bring it up directly with the minister.
What issue is it? I didn't.
There's a discussion of moving people from the Timberland housing project to the seniors complex, the Rainbow Lodge, and having them cohabitate in the same building. The residents have been expressing rather loud concerns for the last couple of days.
The people at Rainbow Lodge?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, undoubtedly. I mean, I got a story to tell about Timberland house. Yeah. I mean, anyways, that's another story.
Anything else on the RCMP report? 9/8, Western Financial sent over some documentation for us. We didn't request this, they just are doing their thing where they try to teach us about life. So these are guidelines for facility rentals. It's good reading for council if you have some time to go through it. It kind of indicates what we should be thinking about if we're renting facilities to anybody. We do own some facilities and there are some rentals in them. So some of this will apply to those committees, they should be thinking about it, but some of this applies more directly to us. It also has some details of optional insurance that's available. So for example, if a tournament was to be held in Benito Ball Grounds and there was some outside group organizing it, they have some options here for $100 for you to have better coverage so that you're a little safer. It's not safer not being injured, safer in having the injuries covered. If something bad happens, that we don't get to be on the hook for it. They indicate that coverage is optional. We own the ball diamonds, so in that example, our coverage carries it if nobody else has any. But of course, that ultimately costs municipalities more money if the municipality's insurance has to pay for it. So they're kind of suggesting when possible, if you have someone coming in, especially if it's something commercial, they should be paying their own way for the insurance rather than it being on our risk. There's a bunch of information there. There's also some stuff they will not insure. And some of the list is straightforward, but I found a couple interesting: climbing walls, gymnastics, fireworks, are all non-insurable these days.
Not insurable.
Non-insurable, they will not insure them. Our master policy will cover it if gymnastics happen. Say somebody rents the rink and does gymnastics in it, we still cover it, but they can't purchase separate insurance for it because it's too risky.
Oh, if somebody else was to come.
No.
What about the ski hill?
The ski hill is part of our master policy, so
But
they
it's
pay.
skiing on here.
Yeah. So they rate them separately, but this is for the kind of the one-of insurance. So that's there. 9/9, an invitation to the CT scanner open house. So some background here. Medical recruitment and retention has been going around in circles. We have been requiring that for the $1 million, there's some sort of ceremony for the CT scanner. But that has caused all sorts of issues in government. One of the people on the speaking list is the MLA, which is normal for the MLA to speak. But they've declared that this particular MLA is partisan in nature. And so if he is to speak, it would be seen as the shared health department supporting a certain political party, which is not necessarily the party they wish to be seen supporting right now. So they're refusing to allow him to speak in the hospital. So for a while, they suggested the ceremony would be held off-site, someplace that's not government property, in a park, for example. And that wasn't flying for the people that put the $1 million in. So some compromises have been made. And what we've ended up with is the speaking portion happening in the parking lot, so as to not be seen in the hospital in a partisan nature. And then immediately following that, tours of the CT scanner. So on that day from 10 a.m. until noon, there's what they're calling select tours. My understanding of that is it's pretty general tours, but they reserve the right to prevent some people from going in. So if you were coughing or something, you may not get yourself a tour, just to keep that from going into the hospital. I imagine if you're shooting up fentanyl immediately before the tour, you're probably not going to
Take you right in.
but otherwise, it's fairly open, so I think most people will get a tour. So I don't know if I'm speaking that day or not, but certainly Mayor Jacobson will be speaking and bringing greetings on behalf of the committee and such. I'm sure Councillor White won't be able to stop himself from speaking also, so that'll likely happen. But the CT scanner is running, it has been for some time. This is just the official marking of it, that it's a done deal and finished. And
Pretty big accomplishment.
it is. I remember being at a meeting many years ago when Dr. Burnside was presenting to the G4 and telling us why we should do this, and there wasn't necessarily enough nodding heads in the room to make it happen. It took a lot of convincing a lot of people that this should happen and that we should be involved, that this wasn't somebody else's problem. I'm pretty proud of the councils that got together and made this happen. We've heard from so many people already that this has directly impacted their lives in a good way. They've had a scan here instead of being shipped out of town. They've been treated quicker. They've avoided having to go on an unnecessary trip when they needed help. It's done a lot of good already, and will for many
It'll
years.
break some business into town, so.
For sure. If you guys can make it, by all means, come on out. You're welcome to have some refreshments. I don't know if they have donuts or not, but
No, I'm not.
You may have to live
No
with
donuts, I'm
refreshments.
not going.
anything else on that? Hearing nothing, we'll head into committee reports. Let's start with Councillor Burick.
I have nothing to report.
What?
Didn't attend any committee meetings, nothing to report.
Councillor Blosha.
I had no committee meetings as well.
Councillor Kushniryk.
Just LUD, we discussed the storm in Benito and some complaints about the way stuff was done, the fun with the sewage. That's about it.
They should have brought a bucket.
We're budgeted for 2.
Good job. Councillor McGregor.
The only thing I have to report, I had a ratepayer call. I will talk more about it in camera. In Kenville, other ratepayers dumping garbage and debris on their lawn, so. Other than that, that's the only thing I have to report.
Councillor Neely.
No committee meetings, summertime, things are sort of quiet.
Councillor Zbirun,
No,
you're good too.
nothing.
All right. Let me get my list
Okay,
open.
good.
And now comes out the list.
Yeah.
Gotta show us up every time.
Yeah,
I've been pretty calm. So I've spent a fair amount of time the last few days working on Cook Brothers invoices. As we alluded to earlier in the meeting, there has been a lot of them held. All of them have been held. So we're trying to free some of those up for payment for them. So I can report that the GPS system we installed this year has now more than paid for itself. During the gravel checking that we've been doing of those invoices, we're routinely finding things that were billed in error and correcting those errors for them. So that's worked out well. I was up to Sarah Lake Road. I spent some time at the office with taxes. I only stuffed envelopes for about 20 minutes this year. That's all I got a chance for. I enjoyed the 20 minutes. More so, I spent some time with Kristi, and we got the taxes into the computer. We got the updates all done to the system. This year, there's a change to how the school taxes work. So the other years, you were getting a check at home. This year, it's actually coming off your tax bill. So we had to make some software changes to the computers to make that happen. We credited $1.6 million of school taxes courtesy of the government. So they're sending us a check for 1.6 million, and we've applied all of that to those tax bills already.
So it shows on the tax
It shows
bill.
right on the tax
So you
bill.
don't have to apply on just the farmland.
That's
school
how it
tax
used to
credit.
be, and then it changed.
So,
The
And
farm-
that's why people were upset, because they thought that we raised the taxes by that, but it was the,
Yeah.
and the good part of that is now they're going down. So your tax bill, the final number at the bottom is lower than it was last year by quite a bit. Even though really it's the same, you can see it now. So it'll look like we lowered the taxes even though we didn't.
Just that you don't get a rebate back.
Right. And some of those rebates, one of the envelopes I stuffed, it was a $2,100 rebate on one piece of property.
that's good.
So some people did very well on that. I want to mention the computer part though. One of the office staff said one day, these are jobs that adults should do. And so, we've got a lot of new staff and we've been working through all those things and all that learning. And I think it's important to recognize how well the staff have been doing at that. Some of the stuff, like we're months ahead of where we were last year on sending out tax notices and having the computer up to date and having those things done. We spent some time and went through some water billing as well. We've been doing some sanity checking. We have about 65 targeted accounts that we're seeing some issues with meters. And some of those could be a bad meter, and we've got those flagged, and we have Public Works working on it. The stuff that's happening here is really good stuff. Adults are doing those jobs because there's stuff happening. And we're cleaning stuff up and getting better and getting better. I felt for a little while like sometimes I came here every couple of weeks and said, it's about the same as it was the last couple of weeks. But there's a lot of progress happening. And not all of it's stuff that we can point to in a meeting and say this person's bill was fixed because it gets into privacy issues, but they've done a lot. And they've been working very well together. I come into the office, everybody's having a great time here. They're all happy, or at least if they're unhappy, they're hiding it very well. It's been good. On the 16th of July, I got to go and pretend I was a TV star. So I spent much of the day with CTV. They were here out of Yorkton at the request of CTV Winnipeg. So I was doing that for Rise. We took them to the Thunder Hill Ski Club, interviewed the president there. We went up to Magnet Hill. And if you've ever thought, could anybody ruin Magnet Hill? Swan Valley West is up to the challenge. The day I took the TV crew out there, we couldn't get Magnet Hill to work because Public Works had gravelled with the type of gravel that wasn't conducive to rolling your vehicle up. They put very coarse gravel on, so they're out there fixing that now. So Magnet Hill will work again. We had to just do a little TV magic to make the vehicle roll. My truck would still go. We used to use reverse. My truck would go up fine, but I could not get that SUV to roll up the hill because the gravel was just sinking in and was bogging down. But that will be repaired so the visitors could again use Magnet Hill. That story aired both in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and it did also air on some other CTV stations across the country. So a very good promotion for the valley.
It'll roll uphill itself on take two.
Just take
Yeah.
that gravel
Take
and
two.
put it over in 173,
three.
you're very close.
I had a great time because they only sent out, with all the budget cuts, they sent one person. So camera person, reporter, all in one. And she was having some trouble, so after a while she gave in and said, you know how to run a camera, don't you? And I said, yes, I do. So I was cameraman for her for a couple hours. It worked a lot better after that. So I had fun. But we promoted the valley, and that's what it's all about, right? That's the economic development thing, just telling people we exist all the time. I was out in Benito for the water flushing. That night I went out with Jody, so we went out and flushed lines together just so he wasn't alone. And it went as okay as it could go when you're doing emergency line flushing. We certainly did not do the normal spring line flush, that needs to be done. But we'll work through that here in the next little while. That same day I went to the museum. Did anyone else get invited to the museum that day? It was called a municipal expose.
Oh, I seen it was on, I seen it was on there, but
So I attended because I was sent an invitation. And my belief is that we should be aware of what's being said about us and try as best we can to serve all the people that live in our area. And certainly we had some people there with grave concerns about municipal governments. So I sat through about a 3-hour presentation by various people. And I was going to bring you some of the brochures tonight and I forgot. But In the presentation, their main concerns are that they feel municipal governments have been taken over by tyrannical leaders of the world who are telling municipal governments what to do and enforcing their laws and rules upon us for various things. Frankly, the conversation was a catch-all for every done me wrong you've heard in the last several years. So the speakers went everything from forced COVID vaccines to vaccinating children with mRNA vaccines to things council have done wrong. It was a very wide net of concerns at that meeting. The stuff that related to municipalities generally related to these people are your neighbors, they might even have been your friends, but now they've been corrupted by people who are making them do certain things and pitting neighbors against neighbors and being mean to people. There was a whole presentation given at the meeting about the Municipality of Manitoba Bozeman. That was about a 25-minute presentation of what's happened out there. They weren't wrong on everything in that presentation, but they detailed a lot of stuff that's gone on in that municipality that doesn't really apply here. We haven't been running our ship that same way with the secrecy and with the bylaw enforcement. It's quite the way it is there. But I think, unfortunately, many of the valley municipalities were painted with that brush in the media as look what's happening in this valley instead of look what's happening in that part of this valley. There was a speaker from Alberta who spoke a lot about their municipalities, and the event wrapped up with a speaker from Saskatchewan. And I say this with as much respect as I can for the man. He's a very good speaker. He had that room wrapped around his finger. He could hold a crowd anywhere he wanted. He is exactly the kind of man you would get to do things if you needed stuff done in a group of people. He is a leader. He can get people to follow him anywhere. My concern is with where he was asking them to follow him to. So he announced that in the next municipal election, they will be fielding candidates in many of these municipalities. And those candidates will, to get the support of the group, have to agree to a document and sign it that declares that they will do what the group tells them to do. There's a national board of directors, and that national board will meet and review those candidates and make sure that they're the right candidates to do the right things in the municipalities. And if you cross the national board and don't fulfill what they say you should do, you are expected to resign from council, up to and including submitting a resignation letter to them ahead of time, so that they hold it, so that if they feel you're not properly representing them at council, they can just file your letter of resignation for you. Which, surprisingly enough, the entire first 2.5 hours of the meeting was talking about how evil it would be that somebody else is doing that and controlling us all, and the last half hour was a plan for how they could control us all to make it better. It would probably be worthwhile in the next election to ask candidates if they've signed such an agreement to follow the rules of an unelected group at council meetings. I don't want to suggest the people in that room didn't have issues. There were about 60 residents of the valley in that room. Most all of them have been mistreated by a municipality at one point or another, and most of them unfairly. They all have valid issues, but their problem probably isn't Bill Gates telling us what to do. The problem is probably that councils sometimes are stupid. And as councils, we all need to do a better job of not saying no if we don't have to say no, trying to work together with people, and trying not to alienate 60 people in our valley that feel that they have no place in this valley municipally, because they should all be included. But I'm not sure that the gentleman from Saskatchewan's on the right path to try and organize the elections and elect legislative candidates to do his bidding. That seems a little absurd. It was a great 3 hours. It was kind of a religious experience because it followed, there was a potluck supper after. And there was, some people read from the Bible during the presentation, so it was a lot like being at church. Friday the 12th of July, I spent several hours in Benito. I was there both as the Reeve, but also fulfilling the role of emergency measures manager for the municipality, directing staff and directing our response to the issues. Prior to that, on Wednesday the 10th, which was the day after our last meeting, I attended the lift station in Benito because it had flagged an error and its light was on. And I don't know if I can say this nicely either, but oh well, these things happen. I felt it got dumped on me. I got a text saying, hey, yeah, it's broken, so you should deal with it. So I did. But it just seemed a little, and maybe some of that needs to go on camera, it felt like it was being dumped on me as, hey, if we just soft sell this to the Reeve and don't tell anybody else, maybe he'll let the town flood and we can be like, hey, Reeve let the town flood. So we'll have to work on that a bit internally in our structure. I know everything about the lift station now. I know how to clean floats. I know how to fix a lift station. I know what should and shouldn't happen. So we have much more knowledge now than we used to have about how to fix a problem there. It underscores the conversation we had last meeting about making sure we monitor that remotely, because the light had been on for a while before anybody noticed. And we should know the minute there's an error at the lift station, someone should know and deal with it, so we aren't again worrying about putting sewage into people's basements.
Yeah, that problem's worse than running out of water.
It is. Running out of water is pretty simple compared to filling the basements up with something else. And while I was there during the one issue, it was discovered that the old lift station lid is no longer secured. So anyone can go and lift the lid, climb down into the old lift station, and die at their leisure. We will have to resolve that problem because we can't let people die at will in our lift station. So we'll work on that. We'll get Public Works to cap it somehow, but it's rather unsafe, and the lid is light enough that probably anybody 8 or older could lift the lid and climb down the ladder and never be seen again. If there's anybody that needs to get rid of something the next while before I cap it, it will never be seen again. That's my report for this evening. Do you have anything you want to add, Kristi, for your stuff?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any questions, comments, any other sharing we want to do tonight before we go to break? Councillor Zbirun.
I did go and check, I was phoned by the office to go and check the roads for, I mentioned the ratepayer's name?
Sure.
Robert Joseph.
Okay.
Carrie, did you guys build a approach about a quarter mile east of his house? Widen it?
Don't think so.
So it looked like it'd been widened. I don't know if there's a culvert in there, and that's one of his problems is that.
We don't build our own approaches.
Okay.
We always put in requests.
Okay, well anyways, it was widened and he said the culvert was plugged, but I walked down there and I can't see a culvert in there at all, so it's puddling water off to one side because it can't get through the ditch. He has another culvert the beavers are damming up that he's been breaking through, and the water and it runs through the culvert and is piled up on the other side of the culvert, so he'd like that moved. And he has a ditch that there is no ditch there. He'd like to put a ditch in so that the water on the top of it, it's like basically on the top of a hill. And he wants a little bit of a ditch so that it will run down into the ravine that goes in the bottom. So he said he talked to somebody from,
Yeah, Lynn was here that day,
Yeah.
and it was the ditch that was his main concern.
okay,
But then, I think Lehan was on holidays, so we needed some eyes on the ground.
yeah. So anyways, I mean, it can be done. I mean, like the culvert, whatever. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, maybe, that's why I thought maybe you guys have widened that approach a bit.
That's
and-
not our land to
Yeah,
to
but
dig
I
or
thought maybe
widen.
you just widened it because it looked like somebody widened it to put, get in there with a semi-truck and whatnot, eh?
No, he would never do that.
Okay.
That happened to one by my house. Not them, but somebody else came and just dumped gravel on both sides.
Yeah.
Made it nice and wide. But that culvert's never gonna be seen again.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm just wondering.
Approach, and it's plugged both sides.
That's what I'm just wondering here because I can't see no culvert if there was one and
Like, are you talking the top of the hill there? or
no,
are you talking
it's
low?
just at it's about a quarter mile east of his house.
Oh, down low.
It's not, it's before it goes down to that valley, that little creek.
No, that approach has always been like that.
Okay. But it
I
just
don't
looked like
think
it was.
there's a culvert in there.
Yeah, I couldn't see one, but it looked like it had been widened and like you said,
No.
could have been,
They never did anything.
Yeah, okay,
If there was any widening done, it would have been in the Don Bobbitt times, but
okay.
then it would have been, if there would be permits here. for
Yeah.
that.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, we're gonna go to recess for 10 minutes or so. We'll come back for in camera. We don't have a lot on that agenda tonight. There'll be a couple HR things, a couple of union updates. We may discuss a little more of that blow up we talked about earlier on, but it's gonna be pretty short. So if anyone's got ideas for other things that we should be doing in camera tonight, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll get out of here relatively early. I predict before 11 o'clock tonight.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking too, yeah. I was thinking too.
We will stand in recess for about 10 minutes till everybody's back. So we'll move to 11.1 in camera. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 1523, the Municipal Act Council shall meet as a committee of the whole to close the meeting and continue discussions in camera regarding personnel matters, negotiations and preliminary discussions, investigation or enforcement of act or bylaw, and security of armed documents and property. Is there a mover? Councillor Neely and Councillor McGregor. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We have the in-camera discussion, 11.3. Are there any resolutions arising from in-camera tonight that we want to consider? Go to number 12, notice of motion. Any notices of motion tonight? Is there any other business or council before we close tonight? Hearing none. Be it resolved that this meeting shall now adjourn at 9:49 p.m. Be it further resolved the next regular meeting is Tuesday, August 13th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Blosha, seconded by Councillor Neely. Any discussion? A reminder, folks, that while this says the next regular meeting is in August, there is a special meeting coming 1 week from tonight. You'll be notified in due course.
You send us a reminder.
She sent an email.
We've email already, but you'll get an agenda 24 hours before showing you what's on that night. There's going to be a couple little things to clean up a check and indemnities will be on that night, but mostly it'll be all the good stuff. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Have a great evening, folks.
We're getting paid
Did
twice
you
this
do
month.
indemnity for that?